Sorry about that. So Nebraska falls to Rutgers. I looked like Nebraska was going to win in this game to me, and then it's like once we came on the air, it was like Rutgers just kind of turned things around. So I didn't get a chance to hear kind of the everything that was going on. But at the end of the day, Rutgers made a comeback in this one. They brought it to overtime. Some kind of crazy stuff there going on. If you read Kent talking about it in the chat, you kind of saw all the craziness of what was happening. And it's the craziness we love of Big Ten basketball, right? The late game shenanigans and trying to figure out what is going to happen, and the referee calls, the out of bounds here and there, just guys playing super hard. I still think that Nebraska is a good basketball team. I don't think that they are going to be hindered by this loss a ton. I mean, they beat Purdue, so that obviously is really helpful there for them. But at the end of the day, Rutgers is hard to beat, especially at Rutgers, and this was a tough one for them. Brant, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, really encouraging to see the way Rutgers battled back, because I think they may have been down by double digits or close to double digits in this game. Nebraska kind of in the second half, they pulled away there for a bit. So kind of surprising to see Rutgers be able to kind of claw their way back into it. We haven't seen it from them this year. But I mean, at the same time, it's playing in the rack. It's that kind of environment. It's going to get crazy. Rutgers is never out of it. You can never count a Steve Pikiell coach team out of it. So really impressive for them to go out and do that and kind of keep their season afloat, because if they would have lost this one, you would have had to seen the writing on the wall that their season's done. So really encouraging for Rutgers to go out and get the job done.
And we've been saying on here for a while now that like Rutgers, obviously this season matters. Nobody's saying that a season doesn't matter, but a lot of what Rutgers is doing this season is building for next year and what Steve Pikiell is doing. And Steve Pikiell went crazy in this game. He got a T at one point. He was just yelling at the officials like crazy. It was unfortunate that Juwan Gary did go down for Nebraska, had a no contact injury, and those are never good. Wasn't able to put any weight on that leg, so a possible ACL tear or something like that. Hopefully not. We're hoping that it was just some kind of freak thing that he can get back out there. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, but I think that kind of affected it as well. Nebraska looked really, really good, and although they didn't drop off, I felt like the depth wasn't really there after Gary was gone, and they started to look a little bit more tired, and Rutgers kind of took advantage of that late in the game. Dakota, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Seeing those non-contact leg injuries never looks good. It usually, hopefully, we'll knock on wood that it does end up being okay, but those are always scary. And say what you will about staying focused or anything like that, you see one of your guys just all of a sudden just go down like that, it can take you out of it mentally. And while I think they did their best to, try and stay with it, I think Rutgers definitely looked at that, smelled a little blood in the water, and were able to claw back, force overtime, and then ultimately come away with it in the end. So it's definitely a good win for Rutgers. I think Nebraska fans are probably going to be kicking themselves in the morning, letting this one get away. But that's life. And in that mid pack of the Big Ten, you can't give them an inch or they'll take a mile, especially playing at the rack. Purdue fans know all too well the horrors of playing at the rack here in the last few years. So you can't let them get going. That's a small, intimate little gym, and they will absolutely get rolling. So it is a win Rutgers absolutely needed. They still have a long way to go if they want to be in any sort of postseason play conversations. I don't know if this loss doesn't necessarily hurts Nebraska, but I think a win here would have definitely gone a lot farther than this loss will in the long run. So it's tough for Nebraska, but someone's got to win it.
Right. Brant, I do want to bring up, because he is just fantastic and astounding. Obviously, the whole Rutgers team had a good game in this one. There wasn't really anybody that you could point out to say that played bad or anything like that, but Clifford Omoruyi, man, 4 blocks in this one, 14 points, 15 assists. I cannot wait for when Clifford Omoruyi plays against Zach Edey, because both of those guys are just playing outstanding this season. Brad, did you have any thoughts about Omoruyi and his defensive effort or anything that he did in this game overall?
Yeah, I mean, Cliff is just an animal in the paint, and when you've got Nebraska, the way they play, Juwan Gary's kind of their guy in the paint, kind of their scrappy rebounder. So when he's out of it, that just kind of opens up more opportunity for Omoruyi to dominate in the paint. And he went out and did that. I mean, you get a classic Clifford Omoruyi showing with those 15 rebounds, 4 blocks, 14 points, just absolute dominance. So that not surprising to see him go out and just go crazy.
Yeah, and he, one thing that he could really use to improve his game that Zach Edey has is free throw shooting. He was 2 for 7 in this one, so obviously that didn't have a huge impact. Rutgers were still able to win this game, but Dakota, do you have any thoughts on the potential matchup we'll see between Omoruyi and Edey coming up soon?
I'll say this: that's always a very fun one to watch because you talk about two just completely different types of centers. Obviously, Zach's 7'4", 300-pound beast, monster, mountain of a man. And then you have Cliff on the other side, very long, very athletic dude who just loves to go after every shot that's going towards the rim. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. That said, Omoruyi is definitely not the most adverse to personal fouls, so I think that's going to play a large fact in this one. I think even in his last 2 games he's had 3, and he had 3 in this one and had 4 against Michigan State. So I think that's probably going to be the story of that matchup more than anything. Obviously, we know the ability that Zach Edey has to draw fouls on the front court of opposing teams. So it's always a fascinating matchup to watch. I enjoyed it last year, and I'm going to enjoy watching it again this year.
And just you mentioned him a little bit there, Dakota. With Juwan Gary, like we said, we hope he's okay. But if Juwan Gary is out for Nebraska for an extended period of time, how do you feel like that affects Nebraska for the rest of the season this year?
Oh, I mean, that's tough. You got a guy who's been playing very well this year for a very incumbent Nebraska team that's kind of come on strong this year. Losing a guy like that is definitely going to hurt. I mean, you got to adopt the next man up, mentality. But with a program like Nebraska, you really got to question, the proven depth that they had. I mean, they didn't play too deep in this one, or definitely didn't get a whole lot of bench production in this one, especially at the forward position. So it's going to see who's going to step up, and if no one can, that's really going to hurt Nebraska going forward.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with it is, him and Rank Mass down there are kind of like a dynamic duo that can work together. And Rank Mass handles the ball more than I think people realize sometimes. And so if without Gary down there, is that going to pull Mass down to the block more and have him unable to do what he does with the ball handling some? Brent, do you have a take on the potential loss of Juwan Gary?
Yeah, it's sad to see him go down. I know he's dealt with season-ending injuries before, so tough to see that happen again to him. And yeah, I mean, he really, in my opinion, is kind of the glue that holds this team together. He does all the scrappy things. So to lose him, it's going to be significant. But I don't think Rink Mass is going to have to change his role. I think you move Josiah Alec down there into that role and kind of have him handle all the rebounds. Help get some room for Rink Mass and company to operate. He has experience winning. New Mexico. He was at New Mexico last year, and they didn't make the tournament, but they were competitive, and a well-coached team with Pitino out there. So I think he brings winning mentality to this front court, and I think Nebraska can keep moving forward and still fight for that tournament spot with him kind of replacing the Juwan Gary role.
What do you think? Do you guys think, and this is the last thing I'll touch on before we end with this one? Do you guys think Nebraska has a good chance to make the tournament, or do you kind of give it like a so-so? Or what are your thoughts on Nebraska's potential to make the tournament here? Brent, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right on the bubble when it comes down to the end of the day. The win over Purdue is going to be huge come selection day. But they're going to need to get another signature win or two, and they're going to have to win most of their home games, I'd say. One more big road game. It's probably going to seal their fate. Which is not easy to do in the Big Ten. Not easy to do.
Dakota, your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. That win over Purdue, you're welcome, is definitely going to keep them probably closer to the bubble than they might have if they lost that game. Obviously, so far they've lost their first matchup against Wisconsin. They got the Purdue win. Other than that, they definitely need another solid win. They do have that home win against Michigan State that they got before the holiday break, which, depending on which way Michigan State goes, could really start to kind of creep up towards, that really good win. And I mean, having a win over Michigan State on your resume is always going to look good in the committee's eyes. But I think I agree that they're going to need something on the road to go out and have just a good, solid road win. I think that's part of the reason they're going to be kicking themselves about tonight. But I think they definitely have plenty of opportunity going to Maryland. I don't know how competitive they would be at Illinois, but we saw Illinois look very vulnerable here in the past week. So it kind of depends on how they respond. And then at Northwestern is another one. And then at Indiana, which I'm hoping Indiana just falls up. Never mind. So they definitely have opportunities to go on the road and get wins, but I think they definitely need to put some road wins on that resume to go with those big home wins.
Yeah, for sure. Russ is in the chat. Potential loss of Gary just means it's Tominaga time. Yes. And it was Tominaga time in this game. But my critiques remain of Tominaga, and his ability to score is fantastic and he's electric. But he just doesn't give you much else than that. 1 rebound in this game, 0 assists. I would have liked to see Tominaga do a little bit more in this one. I think I'm like the only person on the planet that has anything bad to say about Tominaga, because everybody loves him. And I love him too, don't get me wrong, but I also look at his game and say, there's room for improvement. So thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.